Hey everyone, welcome to the ATDev Podcast. So happy to be joined today by a longtime friend, mentor, and force in the disability community, Stuart James. Hey Stuart, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Owen.
Yeah, thank you for being here today.
My
And yeah, we originally met when you were executive director at the Berkeley Center for Independent Living, but you have quite an interesting story. I'd love if you could maybe just introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'm from New York, Long Island, New York, from the Hamptons. I went to school starting in the 70s and 80s, so before the ADA, trying not to date myself. I lived my dad was an athlete, and I grew up around sports. And so I knew that where I wanted to be, sports or entertainment. And I was very lucky that I had supportive parents. I think that's a key. And they encouraged me to pursue these things, even though maybe some others didn't think that was such a good idea. But it ended up leading to a fairly long career in sports, working in marketing. And long before I got involved in the disability movement, although I have one.
Yeah.
And at some point I was living in Asia. I became acquainted with Judy Human, and I realized, having spent some time with her, 2 days with her in her office at the State Department, that everything I was able to do in my life, she was responsible for. She
Yeah.
opened the door for everything that I could do. And it hit me. And so I thought maybe it's my turn to do something. And so I went and I ran the Independent Living Center in Berkeley, which is where I met you, and then went on to run the one in Toledo, which is much larger. And I'm now about to go run an adaptive sports agency here in North Carolina.
Ah, that's so cool. And I think it's so cool how your career arc has come full circle in a lot of ways and incorporating the disability and sports. You mentioned, a little bit about your time in in Asia, and I would love just to if you could share some more stories about that. And I know we've talked offline about that, but yeah, for our listeners, if you could share some stories.
It's interesting. I spent 10 years and I was mostly in China, and a lot of that time I was in Beijing. It was interesting to me because when I first went, I was a little nervous. I was like, wow, this is not, it's still a developing nation. I don't know how they're going to see disability. But when I got there, my disability, and this is going to sound odd, but my disability ended up being an advantage
Mm,
because I would go to meetings with my company that I was working with, and we worked a lot with the government. And so I'd go to these government meetings and people would be surprised to see me. But they would, in their heads, they would decide that I must be the smartest person in the room if I'm there,
yeah,
because otherwise, why would I be there? A person with a disability wouldn't be there unless, and it's so not true, but that's how they would see it.
yeah,
And people would be more curious in a healthy way than an unhealthy way. They would ask questions, and as long as you were okay with answering them, it would just move past that very quickly. And I like that. But within the Chinese society, and this experience really shaped a lot of how I saw what I wanted to do with disability, was within Chinese circles. Disability, if you have a child with a disability, doctors tell you to give it away because they can.
right,
And if you decide to keep the child, most of the time, because of the stigmas, you just hide them. Some parents just can't take
right.
care of their child, but you know what to do. And so I ended up working with two very influential friends of mine and by this point, I should say that I didn't do anything related to disability at this point in my life. My
Right, you were
mother
just
had
doing sports
osteoporosis
marketing.
imperfecta. My mother was involved in founding the national organization. I never went to a meeting 40 or fight with my mother. But I ended up
Yeah.
having these two friends that just said, hey, Beijing's accessible after the Olympics. But if we see someone in a wheelchair, it's you. Where is everybody? And I
Yeah.
would be like, I don't involve myself in that and just whatever. But they didn't give up. And I started to think about it. And we ended up starting a company to deal with the stigma of disability. And what we found is, as soon as we showed people another way, as soon as we opened the door for kids and got them proper assistive technology so they could move around independently, because at this point, most of them didn't even have wheelchairs. And so once you got them doing that, and once you pointed them towards their North Star or the idea that the world might be open to them if they had a dream, they should chase it, and it might be, they jumped. They jumped with all their might. And in Beijing, you can go to school with a disability, but it's not a given. You have to advocate. And if you
Right.
don't know what you're advocating for, then why do it? And if
Yeah.
society's telling you, hey, that kid shouldn't be here, then you just put him in a room and you don't think about it. We showed them and told them a different story, and we literally created the story for these kids. And we worked with about 15 of them. 15 kids that we worked with all ended up in public school.
Oh,
And
wow. Amazing.
it was amazing. And one of the kids he had a lot of challenges, not because of his disability, but he had spina bifida. He was about 8 years old when we met him and would not talk. He was so shy. My wife's Chinese, he would not speak with her. And his parents are Muslim, so that's a whole nother problem in China.
Yeah.
And his dad worked in a brick factory, they didn't have any money. Doctors just said, look, he either walks or life's over. And they would spend all their money in a rehab hospital in Beijing, separate from the parents were separated, not by space, not by marriage. We came in and said, let me show you a different way. And he couldn't come up with anything he wanted to do because he had no experience
Right.
in anything. But I showed him a video of Aaron Farthingham, who does action sports in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And he just went to his mother, I want to do that. And so his mom wanted to kill me. But okay, so we got Aaron to come to China. He was awesome. Great kid. He's a man now, but great kid. He came and he spent a week with us, and we got Maibo on a skate park with Aaron.
Oh,
And
cool.
the point of that story is, so this is a kid that wouldn't speak to us. He was so painfully shy. And after this, he started texting my wife pretty regularly and on updates. And we got one update about a year later that he ended up getting first or second place in a public speaking competition where you have
Wow.
to speak English.
Oh, amazing.
And he suddenly he had a girlfriend. And he's like, but and I'm like, oh, and all we did was show him a different version of himself about what could be, but the path was not gonna was and show him the path. And he did the rest. And
Yeah.
we talked before this started about independent living. That's what I thought independent living should be. We open the door, we create the path, but you, the individual, have to take it
Yep.
and
Yep.
run with it. It's not for us to do that for you.
Yeah, I think that's like a real core principle of at least the American independent living movement is that it really is on the individual to advocate for themselves. And I think that the lesson of being able to learn how to advocate and how to communicate your needs and really tell people in the system that isn't designed for you what you need to be able to be fully self actualized is something that was at the core of the beginning of the independent living movement.
I think some of what the independent living movement is tasked with doing should actually come out of those organizations and go into the schools. The
Yeah,
services should be put in the school
yeah,
and
true.
or the doctor's office where you get your diagnosis. Maybe you're out of school and you've had an accident. And
Right.
the information referral, but it could be people with disabilities doing that. And the independent living skills, not from an OT, not medical. I don't know. When I was at CIL, I don't know if you remember, but I was really into trying to get people driving. And
Yeah,
we got these simulators, but every time we started talking about the simulators, everybody kept talking about doing it at a hospital with an OT and being very formal. And I'm like, you know what? I think we just need to let people sit in the simulator and figure it out and have
right.
fun and not be like a. I had a board member in Toledo, and I love this lady. She had CP. She was older and she had trouble speaking, but she was so sharp. And one of the things she said was, I think disabilities overprogrammed. Every time
Oh,
there's a
interesting.
need, somebody creates a program. Why don't you just let us work together to figure it out? Why does it got to be
Right.
so formal?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think people learn through play, through like unstructured things. So, yeah, I mean, there's really a tendency to medicalize disability and turn it into a fully medical thing when really it's not. It's really that you are who you are and the world just isn't designed for you. And you have to figure out how to design it for yourself.
That's right. And because I think disability is so individualized. What I need is not what you need. And even people with OI, my disability, our needs can be vastly different.
Right.
And so it is very individualized. I don't know if you remember, we had a employee in Berkeley named Trevor Heckendorn.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
he passed unfortunately. But Trevor and I had a conversation one time. You remember he had that really cool Dodge Hellcat car.
Yes.
He and I were talking about our dads, and we both had the same feeling, which was we would get cars like that, or we would get something. I had a four-wheeler, and my dad would be like, "Oh, how you gonna work this out, sport?" And he would stand over me, and I'm like, "You know what? You go away. Come back in an hour, and I'll figure it out." But I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do it while you're standing here. And he had the same experience with his Hellcat. He said, "Dad, just go away. I will figure out this, but you got to give me some space."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Let me do my thing.
And you know what? But part of that is fun, and part of that is where you learn skills. Like I grew up in the time before the '80s. I remember going on field trips with my schools in the '70s when I was a kid, a child,
Yeah.
and the last 30 minutes of the bus ride, I would zone out from my friends because I would start looking, most of the time I was in New York City, and I would start looking at the landscape, thinking, okay, when I get off this bus, how am I going to navigate? Is it
Right.
these
Right.
stairs? Am I going to have to go the long way around? And one of the things I told people this when I was at CIA, we go to the Museum of Natural History a lot. And if you've ever been to the Museum of Natural History in New York, there's 50 steps in the front of it.
Yeah.
And I would have to go all the way around. It's huge, it's over a block, all the way around to the back, through the kitchen, up a freight elevator, and it would take forever.
Yeah.
And my teachers would be like, make everybody wait for me. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather you didn't do that because then I become the burden.
Yes.
I would rather you just go and I will catch up with you with the teacher escorting me. And if
Yeah.
you miss something, I'm fine with that. Maybe I'll stop and see it, but I don't. There's a longer term problem if you make me the burden.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it changes the perception of you and of disability in the other kids' eyes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let me navigate it. It's my problem, but don't make it other people's problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's something that's really, really important. I think that people with disabilities often are made to feel like a burden, whether by their family or society or whatever it is. And I think that that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If like your whole life you're kind of framed or told that you're different and a burden, then you start to believe it when it's not true. And I think that the government programs are there to help people get independent, and it takes a long time for someone to learn how to navigate a world that wasn't made for them. But really, at least I believe that there is a large part of it that is on the person to be able to contribute and find meaningful employment. And that helps to build a, more holistic person.
It's funny because one of the things I noticed in Toledo is really big on basements. People have really cool basements. I
Yeah.
had a movie theater in my basement.
Oh,
And
nice.
it was cool. A lot of kids can't get to the basement. So you go to school and you've got your friends, and then all your friends leave school, they go hang out in somebody's basement, but you don't get invited because they think you can't get down there. And so there's that kind of challenge. But I think sometimes technology can deal with that and help solve that problem, at least to some degree. I remember when my friends went skiing one time, they were leaving me out of that conversation because they thought I can't go skiing. But I caught wind of it and I'm like, you know what, I'm coming with you. And I'll just sit in the ski lodge. I don't need to go out on the mountain. At the time, they didn't have sit skis.
Yeah.
I don't need to go out on the mountain. But there's going to be a time where you guys come off the mountain and you go do stuff, and I can do that. And I'll find my own thing. But I'd rather do that than stay home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're okay communicating that to your friends and your family that going skiing for you looks a little bit different, but it still is a social activity that you get a lot of pleasure from.
And at least give me the option to say yes or no.
Right. Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
make that choice for me.
Yes. Yeah, you touched a little bit on technology, and I would love if we could spend a couple minutes talking about or some trends that you have seen through your career in assistive technology, and where do you see things going? What are some things that excite you?
I think technology right now excites me and scares me. But I think for people with disabilities, it's game changing. Right now, people can start a business, don't have to leave their home. And it's a very viable business. When I see how much kids are making on TikTok, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a friend that's actually my friend's daughter, and she was in medical school at Yale. And she was into football. She really likes the New York Giants football team. And she started just on a whim. She was on a group I was in for the Giants. And she started talking about when players got hurt, what the injury was, and how long they'd be out, and then how that tied to fantasy football. And she started making so much money from this that she quit Yale Law
Oh,
School
wow.
just to
I'm
run
sure
the.
her parents love that.
Oh, she's making insane amounts of money. And part of that for her is she's good looking, so that helps. But my
Right.
point is the door is open for people. You don't have to go to an office anymore. You don't have to work in manufacturing.
Right.
Digital, the landscape. Google was paying blind folks right out of college over $100,000 a year to test the accessibility features on their apps.
Yep.
And
Yep.
they're giving them a braille keyboard and a braille screen and saying, here, break it, break the
Yeah.
technology so they can figure out how to fix it. There's so much opportunity now. I think it's exciting time for people. We were talking about sports, and I mentioned skiing. Sit skis are so much fun if you can use it. So now I could go out on the mountain.
They're so cool. I'm fortunate to live in Colorado, so we have a lot of ski resorts, and yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing, and there's so much opportunity to get people out. And I think it's important for us to show them that, to show them the technology, to give them the experience. I think when one of the things I moved here to work for an organization that focuses on adaptive sports. And one of the reasons I did that is because, or I wanted to do that, was because what I found is when we play adaptive sports or any recreation, whatever it is, and it could be cards, it could be anything, As opposed to just lecturing people about disability, the best way to fix the stigma is to put people with and without disabilities in the same space for play
Yes. Yes, I love that.
and just get to know each other. And you'd be surprised about how fast people stop thinking about your disability and see the person on the other side of it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Stuart, this has been so wonderful. I learn something every time I talk to you. So thank you for doing this.
Having me. You're one of my favorite people in Berkeley, not there anymore. So now you're one of my favorite people in Colorado.
Awesome. And yeah, if people want to learn more about you or the new programs that you're starting, where can they go to learn more and connect?
Yes. And I wish you all the best of with your new company. I'm following it on social media. I'm keeping tabs on you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Stuart. And thank you, all our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider sharing with someone that might also find it interesting. And stay tuned until the next one. All right. Thanks, everybody.